Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're jumping right into a totally modern mystery that honestly affects pretty much all of us. Have you ever wondered why you feel perpetually drained, even when your most strenuous physical activity all day was just moving a computer mouse? Well, in this Explainer, we're going to dive deep into the source material to uncover the real root causes of this fatigue. And more importantly, we'll show you how to actually upgrade your human operating system to cure this modern exhaustion once and for all. Let's get into it. Why do you feel like you got hit by a truck when you just sat in a chair all day? I mean, picture this. It's 6:47 p.m., you collapse onto the couch, literally too tired to even change out of your work clothes. Now, you didn't dig ditches today, you didn't run a marathon, you just sat there. Yet, you have absolutely nothing left in the tank. It's an incredibly frustrating and kind of embarrassing paradox that so many of us go through every single day. You see, there's been this massive historical shift. Think about our grandparents. They often came home physically tired from manual labor, right? But their minds, they were sharp, clear. But for us, it's the exact opposite. We're physically rusted, yet completely, utterly, mentally drained. We are essentially the very first generation in human history to become entirely exhausted from sitting perfectly still. Section 1. The Modern Exhaustion Paradox. Your biology hasn't caught up to technology. Okay, let's dive into this. Before you start blaming yourself and thinking, oh, I'm just lazy or I'm weak, let's be clear. This exhaustion is very real. It's actually measurable, right down to the cellular level. The sources show us that your biology simply hasn't caught up to your technology. We evolved to run from physical predators, not to stare at glowing screens processing endless streams of data. Which brings us to the number 147. That is the staggering amount of times the average person's attention is hijacked by notifications every single day. 147 times your brain has to aggressively shift gears. And here's why that number is just so devastating to your energy levels. Your brain actually cannot tell the difference between a sudden Slack ping and a literal tiger jumping out of a bush. Every buzz, every pop-up on your screen triggers a micro fight or flight response in your nervous system. You're basically being hunted by calendar invites all day long. It's draining your internal battery just like a smartphone trying to run 47 heavy apps in the background. No wonder we're tired. Section 2. Your invisible energy thieves. Burnout by 1,000 sensory paper cuts. So let's diagnose these specific invisible drains. They act like 1,000 tiny vampires just feeding on your daily energy reserves, leaving you completely depleted before lunch even rolls around. Take the open office, for instance. It's essentially a massive, involuntary eavesdropping experiment where your brain is forced to process every single overheard conversation. Then there's the artificial fluorescent lighting, forcing your eyes into overdrive just to focus. And the temperature? It's a constant game of thermal ping pong where your body is always having to adjust. Your sensory environment forces your body to constantly adapt, which drains a massive amount of energy before you even begin your actual work. This environment creates a huge mismatch. Look, the average knowledge worker checks their email every 6 minutes, but the research from our sources shows your brain actually needs 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption. Because of this constant pinging, your brain is stuck in a really exhausting state of transition, leaving only a tiny fraction of the day for actual deep work. It is quite literally like trying to drive a car while aggressively shifting gears every 10 seconds. You're going to burn out the transmission. To fix this, the sources recommend something called the energy audit method. It's simple. For just 1 week, rate your energy 1 to 10 4 times a day, and just jot down a single sentence about what you were just doing. After a week of this, you'll easily spot the 20% of triggers causing 80% of your energy drain. Then, just pick one and try to reduce it by half. You don't need some massive, exhausting life overhaul here. You just need to start building momentum with embarrassingly small wins to plug those constant energy leaks. Section 3. Upgrading your mental models. The invisible operating system running your life. Now that we've tackled the biological hardware problem, we need to look at the software, the invisible operating system running your life. These mental models govern what possibilities you see, how you make decisions, and where you direct your precious attention. A huge part of this is avoiding what's called the wisdom tax. That's the incredibly costly years spent learning predictable life patterns through really painful trial and error. Lessons that could have been acquired in mere minutes. Upgrading your mental models is absolutely the highest leverage activity available to escape paying this invisible tax. It shifts you from learning the hard way to spotting pitfalls clearly right from the start. So, the crucial point here, a high leverage way to avoid that tax, really comes down to the number 72. This represents the 72-hour rule for decision making. For any big, important decision, demand of yourself a wait time of at least 3 days before committing. This deliberate pause creates a vital buffer space between your initial impulse and your actual action. And that gap? That is exactly where wisdom lives, and it's where bad, energy-draining decisions go to die. Think about when you're facing a challenge. You probably ask yourself, how do I become successful? Right? It's a highly logical, very forward-thinking question. It's how almost all of us naturally try to solve our life and career problems. We look way ahead and try to plot a direct, positive path to whatever goal we want to achieve. And this brilliantly illustrates the power of a mental model called inversion. The sources suggest completely flipping that question. Instead, ask, what is causing me to fail? By working backward, you instantly reveal the actual, tangible obstacles currently sitting in your way, rather than just guessing at theoretical, perfect paths to success. Resolving those real obstacles is way more effective than chasing hypothetical solutions. Section 4. Systems over willpower. Why environment design trumps discipline. Look, if you're already experiencing modern exhaustion, trying to force massive life changes through willpower alone is basically a mathematical failure. Because willpower is finite. It runs out. Relying on willpower is like trying to drive a car by stepping out and pushing it. It's wildly inefficient and completely exhausting. Relying on systems, however, means creating an environment where daily discipline isn't even required. Those highly successful people you admire, they aren't necessarily born with superhuman discipline. They just design systems around themselves that make success the path of absolute least resistance. You see, when we don't have systems, we fall into what the sources call the implementation gap. As a culture, we're programmed to overvalue accumulating knowledge and to severely undervalue actual execution. We try these sporadic, massive, heroic efforts, and they inevitably fail. But tiny, consistent daily actions win because the compound effect takes over. That is exactly why a simple 10-minute daily meditation habit will vastly outpace the long-term benefits of some massive once-a-year weekend retreat. Execution beats knowledge every single time. Section 5. Identity-based transformation, targeting who you are, not what you do. The final paradigm shift here is key. True, lasting transformation almost always fails when we solely target our surface-level behaviors without addressing our core underlying identity. For example, goal-based thinking says, I need to exercise more. Well, that immediately demands that finite willpower we just talked about. Identity-based thinking, however, says, I am the kind of person who exercises daily. See the difference? That is simply a natural expression of who you are. Saying I am a writer versus I want to write a book creates lasting, effortless change because it relies entirely on being rather than the exhausting pursuit of having or achieving. Now, what's really interesting about this is how it ties into one profound realization from the source text. You're not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes your thoughts. Once that concept truly clicks for you, it changes everything. Realizing this stops you from being a helpless victim of your exhausting mental loops and endless anxieties. Instead, it finally empowers you to become the deliberate architect of your own mind. So I'll leave you with this. 30 years from now, what will you wish you had implemented today? Don't treat this explainer as just passive entertainment or more information to just consume and forget. Take one single insight we've covered today, whether that's the 72-hour rule, the energy audit, or shifting your identity, and turn it into embodied wisdom through immediate action today. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer. Now go reclaim your focus.